Welcome to the Excel training program. This is Module 1, Introduction to Microsoft Excel, where we'll be looking at starting Excel, understanding spreadsheets, understanding the Excel window. We'll have an overview of the workbook window, using the ribbon, the quick access toolbar, getting help with Excel, and exiting Microsoft Excel. There are a few ways you can open Excel. One way is to go to the top right hand corner of your desktop until you see the charms, and then go down to the search bar, click on the search bar, type in Excel, and assuming you have the program Excel 2013, just click on that to launch Excel. And then probably you want to just start with a blank workbook, so just click blank workbook and you're ready to go. Another good idea is to open Excel but pin it to the taskbar. We'll just go to the top right hand corner again of our screen, go down to our search menu, type in Excel once more, and then if we right click on this, we can see we've got various options such as pin to start or pin to taskbar. We certainly don't want to uninstall. We can pin this to the taskbar, which would mean it would remain on our taskbar at the bottom of the screen, so we'll do that. And I'll just click away from there now, and if we go down to our taskbar, here I have the Excel logo, and to start Excel I'll just click on that to launch it. And as before, we'll probably want a blank workbook, so we'll just click blank workbook and we're ready to go again. And we'll just close Excel there now once more, back to our desktop. Another way you can start Excel is to create a shortcut or create a new icon on your desktop just by right clicking on your desktop and then running down to new, and then run across to Microsoft Excel worksheet, and you can name this anything you want. Okay, and then just open that icon to open Excel, and although this file is saved as sample, you can save it as something else by going file, save as, determine where you want to save to. If you haven't decided where you're going to save to yet, probably best to click browse, find a location where you want to save to. I'm just going to rename this as test, and that takes us back to our Excel worksheet, which we can close top right hand corner, and on our desktop now we can see that we have the file. Just move that across there, and I could open either of these to open Excel again. Another thing I could do is I could go to the start menu again and type in Excel, and then I can right click on the Excel 2013 icon and then click on pin to start, and this will add the Excel logo to my start menu. Depending on how much you've got in your start menu, this might not be necessarily such a good idea, but it's a possibility, and there I have Excel on my start menu. It's up to you which way you want to do that. So probably you find it easier to work with the icon on the taskbar to open Excel, especially if you're using it quite regularly. When you open up Excel, you can go straight to a blank workbook, take a tour, or have a look at some of the templates as well. There's some very interesting ones there, and you can get more of those online. We'll just open up a blank workbook here. You can see that the spreadsheet is made up of rows and columns. If I click the A there, that's the column selector for column A. And if I click a row selector, say for row 4 here, that selects my whole row. I can select a number of cells together by clicking my mouse into one of them, and then I can drag my mouse around to select the cells I need to complete my selection. It's always a good idea to zoom in, and sometimes it's necessary to widen column A just to allow room for text. Cell A1 is my home cell, and any text that's written into any cell is known as a label, whereas a number is known as a value. I'll just type 5 there, and hit return. When you're finished with a cell, get out of it. A very useful command is the undo command, which you find at the top of the screen there. And the keyboard shortcut for this is Control and Z, or Z. If you hold the Control key down and hit the letter Z, it will undo your last action. And if you keep on hitting the Z, it will keep on undoing all the actions. A workbook is a spreadsheet, and a workbook can contain a number of spreadsheets or worksheets. We're just working on sheet 1 at the moment here. If I go down to the bottom here, I can add another worksheet by clicking the plus sign, and there's my second worksheet within this same workbook, and I can have any number of worksheets. I'll just go back to sheet 1 there. Don't forget our zoom controls are very useful when we want to get closer in to see detail on the worksheet. We've also got different views, as you can see here next to the zoom controls here, bottom right. And we can also go up to the view menu on the ribbon here, the view tab, and we can switch views here. If I go to page break preview, for example, there's nothing there because I don't have any data yet, but that would be a useful view later. Then there's page layout view, where I could add headers and footers, etc. And you can even customize your own view that you want. We'll just go back to our file menu here, okay, because we've got various options here like new. We can open an existing document, we can save this document, or we could actually save this document with a different name. We have other options as well, like export and close. And if you have an account with Microsoft, you've got options there. And here we can see the various options that we can apply to our own workbook. We'll have a look at those in more detail later. I'll just switch back to normal view there. So we're in our view tab on the ribbon. We'll just switch back to our home tab here and have a look around here. We've got our cut and copy commands here, and our paste when we've got something cut or copied. There's our format painter there, which is very useful if we just want to copy formatting from certain cells and apply them to others. We'll have a look at that later, of course. We can change font here for the cells that we have selected. I've only one cell selected at the moment, of course, but I can change the font for that particular cell and change the size of the font from the default, which is 11 at the moment, and I can change that here again only to the cells that I have selected. There's our bold, italic and underline, and I've also got an option for double underline as well. We can also apply borders to these cells, fill colors or shading, and we can also choose which color we want from the drop down palettes there. You can see there I'm changing the color of that particular cell. I select a few cells together, known as a range, and I can apply the fill color to those selected cells. I can also change the font color either by changing the font color immediately or typing something and then selecting the cell and adding the color of the font that I want. Let's go for a brown here, so I'll just type in there, and when I've finished that I'll hit return. We have other options here for alignment as to how the text would show into the cells, and we can click the menu to bring up the format cells dialog box, which we'll be seeing a lot more of. Here we can format numbers, alignment, the font, borders, fill colors, and protecting the cells. Like I say, we'll look at that in more detail later on. Also, we can wrap text as well. Here you can see the example with if you wanted to make sure all the text appears in the cell. If the cell's not big enough, then you can use the wrap text command. Merge and center is where you might want to put a heading over the top of your data and join all the cells together and put a heading centered across the top, and we can unmerge the cells from that as well as another option. And then next to that we have other options here, including the number format. Again, we'll look at this in much more detail later on. If you go to more options there, you go back to your format cell dialog box here for the different types of numbers that you could have. We also have other options here such as cell styles and conditional formatting. Again, we'll be looking at these in much more detail later on, so don't worry about them too much now. We've also got options here to insert cells, delete cells, and to format cells as well. And that will, if we go to format cells here, we'll come across our format cells dialog box again. Very useful. And here we've got options for formula. Some of the common formula are displayed, and we can go into more functions here, determine which function or formula we want, and apply it that way. We've also got options to fill our cells. Again, don't worry about this too much now because we'll look at it in more detail. And we can clear contents or formats from particular cells. We can sort and filter our data, or if we're particularly looking for certain values or labels, we can use our find or replace commands. And that kind of sums it up for the Home tab. Most of the options that can be created from the Home menu, most of the commands can be done with a right click on selected cells. Just select a few cells there and we'll right click, and you can see I've got a number of different options I could work with. For example, clear contents, if there were any contents to clear there, and I could change fonts, etc. here. And this is the same as going up to the menu at the top here. Here I could clear the contents from those cells. You'll notice that there's a line here, a dotted line between column I and J. This indicates the print area. If I go to File and Print, even though I've nothing to print yet, my settings have determined that that would be the edge of the page or the margin as to where I'm printing. Naturally, we'll be able to change that later. But just be aware of that dotted line that will appear when you go into Print Preview. So that was a quick view of the Home tab on the ribbon. Now we'll have a quick look at the Insert tab here. Just click at the top of the ribbon here. First of all, we've got pivot tables. We're going to be looking at those in much more detail later on, but there's our options. Here we have an option to put in pictures, image files, or even shapes. There's a wide variety of shapes we can choose from. Then there's Smart Art Graphics, which includes organization charts, hierarchical pyramids, and Venn diagrams and the like. Quite a wide selection of those we could use. I'll cancel that for the moment. We can also do a screen capture from another program. If we just want to take a screen cap of something, we can insert it with this command here. We have apps for Office. Also, we've got recommended charts based on data that's on the spreadsheet already. And then we've other options to do with the charts themselves. Again, we'll be looking at all of those in much more detail later on. And we've got other options here, again, still to do with charts, that we could create different types of charts from line or column. We've options here for adding hyperlink. We also have our text box, which is very useful. Just click that. Notice the mouse changed slightly there, and we just left click and draw a square or rectangle and then let go. And then we can add our text and format it either before we type or afterwards. And once we've finished typing, we'll just deselect, and this text box can be moved around the spreadsheet once it's deselected, we just click on the border to move it around, and these can be very useful depending on what you're doing. Okay, just Control Z to undo that, and then we'll go over to our Insert tab again and just have a quick look at the headers and footers. Obviously we'll look at these in more detail here, but here we're switching to the header and footer view. I'll just type in a header here. When you finish typing in a header, just click out of it or just go back to your home tab. As you can see here, there are various other tools we could use with the headers and footers, like putting in page numbers or dates and times. And we can switch between the header and footer here, and there's some determined or customized headers and footers that we could use as well. A few other options we've got on the Insert menu are Insert Word Art here, very similar to Microsoft Word Art. We could add a signature line if you've a digital signature you want to add. We can embed an object such as another file here as well, can be quite useful. And then also we've got equations here on the top menu here. Personally, I think most of these are quite scary, but anyway, that's my opinion. And we can insert symbols as well from here, ones that you wouldn't normally find on your keyboard, or what might require a keyboard shortcut, for example. Okay, we'll have a look at the page layout tab now. First of all, we've got themes. You can change your work area, your workspace, to different themes, colors and styles. That's a matter of personal choice really. Change just the colors themselves, change the font styles, or change the effects on the fonts. Again, it's all a matter of personal taste. Next along here we've got our margins in our page setup. We can adjust the margins here, and we could also do it from print preview. The margins, of course, are the white space around the edge of the page. We can change orientation from portrait to landscape and vice versa. We can change the size of the paper that we're working with. Default is A4, but you might be working somewhere where A4 is not the designated paper size, and you can change it here. We can go into page setup here with various options, which we can also go to from print preview. We can choose a print area. That's to say, we can select a part of the worksheet that is determined as being the only area that we want to print, and everything outside of that area will be excluded. And we can also clear that print area from there. When we've got a lot of data, we'll probably want to put page breaks into it as well. You might want to put a background in. You can go online and get pictures to put into the background, or you might have a background that you want to place into your worksheet. Again, that's a matter of personal taste, and it doesn't always work with every type of spreadsheet. You can choose to print the titles at the top of the page. Again, we'll look at that in more detail in print preview when we come to that, but the options are there. And you have other options here to do with scaling. Again, this is all available to you in print preview, but you can determine from here how many pages you want print, what the width or height you want, or the scale. By default it's set at 100%, but you can change that, and quite honestly it's better to do all of that in print preview. Okay, you've got other options for the page setup here. Say we'll go into those more detail. You can view or hide the grid lines, for example. You can view the headings if you wish to. That's just an option. And then we've other options to print a test page, for example. And we've got other options here as well. When we're dealing with objects, you might want an object to be at the front of another one, so you'd bring it forward or send it backward as required. You can also group or align objects. We'll be looking at images and illustrations in much more detail later on, so we'll come across all this again. You can group objects, ungroup them, etc. from there. So we'll have a look now at the Formula tab on the ribbon. Here you can see the FX, which means insert function. It's also available on your formula bar here as well. And if we just click the FX, it brings up our functions dialog box. We can type the type of formula that we're trying to find, click go, and it'll give us a number of options depending on the formula we're looking for. I'll just cancel that for the moment. Then we have our auto sum. This will become very familiar with you later on. The symbol is a sigma, a Greek E. If you were just to click that, it would give you the sum formula, but we've other options from the drop down menu, such as average, count, minimum, maximum, etc. And we can even go into more functions again from this drop down menu, like so. Just cancel that again. And here we have functions grouped by type, which can be useful if you're looking for a particular type of function. Just go to that particular group. Here we have the name manager. If you want to, you can select a group of cells and give them a name instead of the various cell references. We'll of course be looking at this in more detail later on, but you'll always find it here in the Formula tab on the ribbon. You can define a particular name for the group of cells. Over here is very interesting for finding errors in formulas. Again, of course, we're going to look at this in more detail later, but just so that you're aware of it. Here's the watch window, where you can have a little window on top of your spreadsheet, and as you update values, the watch window will update automatically. There's calculation options here as well. Again, we'll look at this in more detail later, so don't worry about it now. And that's pretty much it for the formula. The next tab on our ribbon is the Data tab. We'll have a quick run through this. You can get data from external sources like Microsoft Access, for example, or from the internet, or get data from a text file, various other sources using an existing connection. The connections would need to be set up on your network. You can sort data from here as well and filter. You guessed it, we'll be looking at that in more detail later. And filtering is very useful if you just particularly want to show certain values in a data sheet, and with various options with the filtering there. We can look at that in more detail. We can change text to columns as an option here. We can use flash fill, which works sometimes, not always. We can remove duplicates. That's to say you've got duplicate values in two different columns. You can remove the duplicates. Then we have data validation, which is very useful if you want to just specify what types of values are to go into cells. Say, for example, you only wanted 1, 2, or 3 in a cell. You could stipulate that those are the only values that can go into those cells. You can use consolidation as well. Again, of course, we're going to look at that in more detail later on. And next to that is the what if analysis, which includes things like the scenario manager and goal seek. Like I say, don't worry about these for the moment. We'll look at them later, and relationships that go with data. You also have other options here for grouping data into sections and then make subtotals out of the data. Really best shown when you can see some data to work with here. So we'll look at that in more detail further along. The next tab on our ribbon is our Review tab. We'll have a quick look at this. Just go to Review here. From here we can do our spell check. I've nothing to correct at the moment, but that's very useful obviously. We've got a research tool here where we can use online dictionaries, encyclopedias and translation services. Then we have the thesaurus if you want a similar word that has a similar meaning for a word that you have already, then that's your thesaurus. We have a translate option here. Here we can add comments to particular cells. We'll just demonstrate that. Okay, once I finish typing a comment, I'll just click away from it, and you'll notice that the cell now has a little red marker on it. When I float my mouse over that cell, I can see the comment for that particular cell. Further along on the tab here on the ribbon, the Review tab, we've got Protect Sheet, Protect Workbook, Share Workbook, and allow users to edit ranges and track changes, etc. And of course we'll be looking at all of that later. So that's our Review tab on the ribbon. Our last tab on our ribbon is the View tab, so let's have a look at this. We already had a look at the different views here, different workbook views. Here we've got options to show the ruler or the formula bar, grid lines or headings. Notice that ruler only shows in your page layout view. So untick that and my ruler is gone. And in page break preview, I don't have the ruler option anyway. So best view is normal. Also on the View menu we have our zoom control, which is just the same as it is down here on the bottom right. Zoom to selection means if we just select some text or ranges of cells and then go zoom to selection, that takes me into that particular selection. 100% takes me back to 100% view, and I'll just move up to the top cell there. The home cell is called A1. A little keyboard shortcut you can use to get to that quite quickly is Control and Home. I'm now in cell A1, and I'll just increase my zoom slightly down. I'm going to get rid of that comment here. I'm just going to right click and delete the comment. Also on our View ribbon here we've got New Window, which means you can open up a second window for the same document, which is handy if you want to work in two different places on the same document. Arrange All would mean if you've got more than one workbook open and you want to show them side by side, that's the option there. Freeze Panes means you might want to keep one section, say for example a couple of rows at the top, you might want to keep them in view all the time. That would be your Freeze Panes option. Again, we'll look at that in more detail later. You have an option then to split the window into different panes that each scrolls separately. That's when you're working with more than one worksheet. And then our option to hide means just hiding the current window. We also have the option to switch windows if we're working with more than one worksheet at a time. We can switch windows here. And then finally we've got macros, and you've guessed it, we'll look at those in more detail later. Okay, so we'll go back to our Home tab. So that's probably the best by default to stay with. So I'm back on my Home tab here now. If you're new to Excel, I just get yourself familiarized with the different tabs on the ribbon here. Home, Insert, Page Layout, Formulas, Data, Review and View. It doesn't matter if you don't understand everything in these yet, we'll be going over them later in the training program. Okay, so we're back to our Home tab here. Just a few other icons we should be aware of here. We've got the Excel logo at the top here. That would just give you the option to minimize or close Excel. We have next to that our save icon. Notice that the keyboard shortcut is Control and S, which is very useful. To the right of that we have our undo, and as explained earlier, the keyboard shortcut to that is Control and Z. Very useful little tool that can be. And we also have the option to redo. Okay, there's nothing to redo here at the moment, but the keyboard shortcut for that would be Control and Y. To the right of that we have our quick access toolbar, and I just click the down arrow here. We've got various options and we can add more commands to this as we want. Okay, as you get more familiar with Excel, you might want to customize this for your own requirements. So I'll just go back to that. This is the quick access toolbar. Okay, this is our title bar here with our file name. Over to the right, okay, going from the far right here, obviously that would close Excel. Next one would restore the window down, so we're only at half size, like so. And then we can minimize, which would take the workbook down to our taskbar. Just click on the taskbar to bring it back. And then we have our ribbon display options. We'll just click on that and see what we've got here. We've got the auto hide ribbon, which means it will hide the ribbon unless we particularly want to show it. Let's just have a look and see how it looks in that format. As you can see, our ribbon seems to have disappeared here now. It's just being hidden. I'll click up to the three little dots here. Okay, that brings it back for me temporarily, but when I move away from it, it will disappear. So I'll go back and restore my options by clicking on the ribbon display options and choosing show tabs and commands, or I could have chosen just to show tabs. I'll go show tabs and commands. Another icon here in the top right hand corner is our help menu. When I float my mouse over that, you can see that the function key F1 will also work for this. I'll just click it anyway on the question mark here, and then go over to search online help, and let's just say we want to find out about average formulas. Okay, I type what I'm looking for and then either hit the magnifying glass or hit your return key, and this will bring up a list of results of different articles about average formulas. It may take a while for you to find exactly what you're looking for, and you might find a video from Microsoft which will explain it for you. To get out of the help menu, you can either hit the X in the top right hand corner or use the command Alt and F4. I'll just try that, Alt and F4, and that takes us back to Excel. This part of the spreadsheet here is known as the formula bar. Here we can see the name box. As mentioned earlier, whenever you click into a cell, it will show the cell reference, and to the right of that we can expand that if we need to, like so. I just held my left click down and dragged that. In the formula bar, here's where we will be editing formulae. I have the option here to clear or cancel whatever I've typed. I have the option to enter whatever I've typed, although your return key will do the same thing. Here we have the option to insert a function. We looked at that very briefly earlier. Remember our insert function dialog box. Okay, and this is the formula bar itself. And you have a down arrow over the right which would show an enlarged formula bar for very big formulas. Don't worry, we're not going to have a formula that's going to take up all that space. I'll just bring that back. So remember, if you're saving to your desktop or even to a folder in your desktop, you can open Excel from that particular file, or you could go to the top right hand corner and do a search for Excel. And probably the best thing to do is have Excel pinned to your taskbar so that at any time you can open Excel from your taskbar, and that will give you a new document by clicking blank workbook. And it's a good idea once you've opened up a workbook perhaps to just zoom in to make it easier to read, and you might want to widen column A depending on what labels or data you want to put into the first column. And remember that each cell has its own cell reference, and cell A1 is known as the home cell. You have scroll bars to the right here, over the right hand part of the screen here, and you have a scroll bar at the bottom. When the data is taking up more of the page, we'll have a wider scroll bar at the bottom of our screen. And we'll just close that by hitting the X at the top right hand corner. Now the changes I made were just widening the column there, so I'll just go no, don't save. And that's it with opening and closing Excel and a quick review of Microsoft Excel. And here's a quick recap of what we've covered in Module 1. Don't worry if it all seems a little bit daunting, we'll be covering everything in much more detail in this training program. Thanks very much for watching.